Good evening, all of you. So, in day 12, we are going to discuss about arrays and a definition of an array and how we are going to initialize an arrays and characteristics of an array and some of the array categories. So, like we are discussing about single dimensional array, we are discussing the previous class. So now let us continue different categories of arrays in day 13. So before that I will go on revision. So what is an array? So array is a set of homogeneous data items of the same data type that share common name. And what is an element? The individual values in the array are called as elements. And what is the index or subscript? So each array element is referred by specifying the array name and followed by a number within square brace. So that will be referred to as an index or subscript. And you have to remember that arrays are static data structures. So that means that once you can declare the size of the array, so that cannot be increased or that cannot be decreased. So this is a declaration of an array. So storage type, data type, and followed by array name and followed by size of the array. And this is a memory allocation for arrays. So that will be already discussed in the day 12. And initialization of arrays. So for initialization of array, you have to use the syntax storage type, data type, array name followed by size is equal to list of values. So for example, int marks of 7 is equal to, you have to enter 7 marks, subject marks. So but here I'm going to declare only 5 subjects. So if you declare only 5 subjects and remaining 2 fields which will be filled with 0 by defaultly. And similarly for a third example, float amount followed by empty size is equal to and followed by list of values. So if you are not going to mention the size of the array, so in that cases the compiler allocates enough memory space for all the elements given for initialization. So in this example I'm going to use 4 values here. So that's why the size of this example will be 4. And this is the allocation for uh, above example. So marks 0, marks 1, marks 2 and so on up to marks 6. So that is equal to the 5 subject marks which will be stored at index number 0 to up to 4, and I'm not going to use 5 and 6 values. So that's why that field will be stored with 0. And these are the characteristics we are discussing in the day 12. So these are the applications of arrays. So insertion, deletion, travel and sorting and searching and matching. So these are the operations can be done on a arrays. And types of arrays. So let us continue today. Types of arrays or categories of arrays. There are 3 types of arrays or 3 categories of arrays. So that is a one-dimensional array and a two-dimensional array and a multi-dimensional arrays. So the one-dimensional array is called as a single dimensional array and it can be represented by single square brackets. And if it is a two-dimensional array, then you have to represent two square brackets. And if it is a three-dimensional array or multi-dimensional array, then you have to use 3 square brackets. So that is the different categories of an arrays. So that is the first one is a one-dimensional array. So in one-dimensional array, you have to use only single square brackets. And how will go to access elements in the array? So if you want to access a particular value in an array or in a memory location, you have to use index number. So by using index number or subscript number, you have to access the particular value in the memory location. So this example we have seen in the previous class. So this is an example for find out a maximum biggest of 10 numbers using arrays. So for that I'm going to read number of elements from the keyboard. If my n value is 10, then I need to enter 10 elements. So for entering 10 elements, then I will go to use a for loop. So the first value will be stored at index number 0 onwards. So that's why here I'm writing I is equal to 0, I less than n, I plus plus, and by using a scanf function you have to read 10 elements from the keyboard. And here what are the values we are going to read from the keyboard, so that all values will be stored at index number 0 onwards. And after that I am going to assume that, so the first index number, that is a 0, is called as the maximum number. And if you want compare with the second, third, fourth up to 10 elements, then I will going to use again for loop for I is equal to 0, I less than n, I plus plus, and after that for comparison of side by side elements, then I will go to use one if condition. If a of I greater than max, then you can store the maximum value into a of I. So that means on that particular index number, so on that particular index number, which will go and store the maximum value. And after that, after completion of all iterations, then it will go and print the maximum number. So for printing of maximum number, I am using a printf function, and it is output function. So maximum number is equal to %d comma max. And if you want to find out the minimum number among 10 numbers, then you have to use small changes, that will be a of I less than, you can change the variable as a minimum. So a of I less than minimum, then you will get the minimum number among 10 numbers. And second one is a double dimensional array. So in a double dimensional array, you have to use following syntax: storage type, data type, array name, and followed by first square brackets contain row size, and second square brackets contain column size. So it contains row size and column size. For example, I'm using a example int marks followed by 2 comma 2. So here the first two indicate that row size, and the second two indicate that column size. So that means it is a 2 by 2 matrix. So if it is a 2 by 2 matrix, the values will be stored like this. So that means 0 0, which will go and store element 1, and 0 1, which will go and store element 2, and 1 0, which will go and store element 3, and 1 1, which will go and store element 4. So that means 1 2 3 4 values can be stored like this, like 0th row, 0th column, first element, and 0th row, first column, second element, first row, 0th column, third element, and first row and first column, which will go and store fourth element. So like that, the 2 by 2 elements can be stored into the array. So this is an example for 2 by 2 matrix. So I said that for row wise, so 0th row, 0th column, and 0th row, first row, and so on. So here the first value, so that is x of 0 0 at index number 0 0, that means 0th row, first column, 0th column, which will go and store the values. So like that, which will go and store the number of values up to x of 0 to x of n minus 1. So like that, you can store it is a 2 by 2 matrix, or it is a 3 by 3 matrix, or it is a 4 by 4 matrix. So according to that values, which will go and store the, or which will go to arrange all these will be in as a matrix. So this is a representation of a memory allocation of a double dimensional arrays. So now coming into initialization of double dimensional arrays. So if you want to initialize the double dimensional array, then you have to use data type, storage type, data type, followed by array name, and followed by row size, and column size is equal to list of values. So the list of values can be right in between open and closing curly brackets, and the list of values are separated by comma, and which will be terminated by semicolon. So for example, I want to write a I want a 4 by 2 matrix, like 4 rows and 2 columns. Then I will go and initialize the matrix will be is equal to, followed by open curly brackets, and followed by I have to write So within the curly brackets we have write first row, so that is a 84 56, and second row 92 67, and third row 75 8 78, and fourth row 69 and 8 89. So that is a 4 rows. So it contains 4 rows and 2 columns. So that's why it is a 4 by 2 matrix. And after that, after initializing of these elements, so then it will be terminated by semicolon. So here each and every value will be terminated by comma. So comma, and for last value you don't give a comma, and it will be terminated by the semicolon. So this is a initialization of the two-dimensional arrays. So if you have any doubts, please be subscribe the channel, and so that it will going to allow us to um, asking queries in the following session. So if you have any doubts, you can post the queries in a chat box. So the chat box will be meant for only subscribers only. So if you are not subscribed my channel, so please go through the channel. So I link posted in the WhatsApp group. So please click on that and you can subscribe my channel, so that you can interact with me more. So that is about initialization of double dimensional arrays. So the double dimensional arrays will be stored like this. So I said that I'm taking a 4 by 2 matrix, and these are the values. So total 4 into 2, that is equal to 8 elements. So that will be stored. The first value will be stored 0th row 0th column 84, and 0th row and 0th row first column 94, 0th row second column 75, 0th row third column 69, and first row and 0th column 56, first row first column 67, first row second column 78, first row and third column 89. So like that, if it is a single dimensional array or if it is a double dimensional array, so based on that syntax, the values will be stored into the memory. So this is an example for sum of all elements in a matrix elements. So by using a double dimensional arrays. So with help of a double dimensional arrays, we will go and solve matrix problems like sum of the matrix elements, and edit matrix addition, matrix subtraction, matrix multiplication, and transpose of a matrix, so and all. So different types of operations can be done on double dimensional arrays. So if you use a matrix, then you should use a double dimensional array. So now here I'm going to declare the double dimensional array. So that is a 10 rows and 10 columns. So after that I'm going to read matrix order. So if it is a 2 by 2 matrix or 3 by 3 and so on. So for that I'm using a scanf function. Then I'm going to read the mn. So here mn indicate that number of rows and number of columns. So after reading order of the matrix, now you have to insert elements into that matrix. So if you want to insert elements into that matrix, then you have to use two for loops. So the first for loop, that is outer for loop, will be for rows, and the second for loop will be for columns. So I is equal to 0, I less than m, I plus plus, and for j is equal to 0, j less than n, j plus plus, and followed by I'm going to read the matrix elements. So by using a scanf function and followed by address of a of I and j. At the same time, I'm also perform some of the matrix elements. So what are the elements I'm going to read from the keyboard? At the same time, I'm going to perform some of the matrix elements. I hope you'll be understanding what I'm saying. So this statement can be also separately, but for reducing of code, I'm writing the same expression, sum is equal to sum plus a of ij within this for loop only. So that means while reading of my array elements directly, I'm going to do sum also immediately. So after sum of the given array elements, so the result will be stored into the variable sum. Then I will going to print sum of matrix elements are percentage d comma sum. then I got the sum of the matrix elements. So let us compile this program in an online compiler. So just copy and paste it into the online compiler. So we have a different types of online compilers are there. So if you not install the Turbo C in our PC, you can use different types of online compilers, and after done, then you have to execute. So it will asking enter the matrix order. So now I'm going to enter order of matrix will be 2 by 2, and after that it will going to ask enter the elements. So I entered 1 2 3 4. So now I got the sum of the matrix elements are 10. So that means 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4, that is equal to 10. So if it is a 3 by 3 matrix, then you need to enter up to 9 elements. Then it will go and perform 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus 7 plus 8 plus 9. Then we will get some value. So this is an example for some of the matrix elements. I hope you will be understanding what I am saying. So here I am writing a sum is equal to sum plus a of ij at the time of reading of the elements. So otherwise you can also write this statement. So can also write these statements, and again you have to use for loops and j loop, and after that you can perform sum is equal to sum plus a of I. So here why I'm writing sum is equal to sum plus a of ij in the at the time of reading of my matrix elements means that so I'm going to reduce the program size. So instead of using again same for loop and j loop, so I'm going to using same for loop and while loop in the for reading of matrix elements. So within that I'm going to perform the sum of the matrix elements only. So that means I'm going to, for reducing of a programming size, I'm going to mention the sum of matrix elements with at the time of reading of the array elements, so that my program will be reduced. If you declare here, you don't want type same lines in our programming code. So that's why I'm going for reducing our programming size. I'm going to use same statement within the uh, while reading of elements. I'm going to use same statement here. I hope you'll be understanding what I'm saying. So this is some of the matrix elements. So similarly, you have to perform addition, so addition of a matrix, or subtraction of matrix, or multiplication of matrix, or transpose of a matrix, and so on. So for example, if you want to write a transpose of a matrix, so it will be very simple. So um, so here I'm writing so printf transpose of a matrix is, and followed by comma a of j and I. So that means you can swap rows with the columns and columns with the rows. So here I am going to read the A matrix. So after that immediately I am going to swapping. So that values will be if it is a row, I am going to convert into column, and if it is a column, then I will go and convert into rows. So now let us execute this code. Semicolon is missing here, and execute once again. So now it will asking enter the matrix 2 by 2, and the elements are 1 2 3 4. So here you have to use a personal D comma A of j and I. Now again you have to execute. So 2 by 2. So 2 by 2 matrix, and my elements are 1 2 3 4. So that is not a correct answer. So anyway, so I will use the same statements. Then I will write the code transpose of a matrix. So printf personal d comma a of j and I. Now execute once again. So now enter the order of matrix 2 by 2 and 1, 2, 3 and 4. So that is a conversion. So here, so 0th row, 0th column, the first element, 0th row, first column, second element, first row, first column, 0th column, third element, and first row, first column, fourth element. Now I'm going to convert this rows as a columns and columns as a rows. Then I got 1, 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 4. So 1, 3, 2, 4. So that means we are converted from rows as a columns and columns as a rows. So with help of these double dimensional arrays, we will go and perform all matrix operations. So that is about a double dimensional array. And if you have any doubts, if you have any queries, you can post it in the chat box. So I will try to answer your queries after the class. So next one is a three-dimensional array or multi-dimensional arrays. So the three-dimensional array can be represented as a data type, array name followed by 3 square brackets. So here the first dimension represents the block size. So that means total number of two-dimensional array or double-dimensional array. So the first dimension, that is the first square brackets, represent the block size. So that is a total number of 2D array. And the second dimension represents the rows, number of rows of a two-dimensional array. And the third dimension represents the columns of 2D arrays. So that means column. So column size of the double dimensional arrays. So for example, so int array followed by 3, 3, 3. So what is the first index represent? The first index represent the block size. So that means the total number of double dimensional arrays, array size. So next, the second dimension represent the number of rows in a double dimensional array, and the third dimension represent the number of columns in a second two-dimensional array. I hope you will be understanding what I am saying. So the statement says that we want three such 2D arrays, like a double dimensional arrays, which consist of 3 rows and 3 columns. So the first dimension represents the block size. That means total number of double dimensional arrays. That means the order of the double dimensional array. And the second dimension represents the row size of a double dimensional array. And the third dimension represents the columns size of the double dimensional array. So for example, array followed by 3, 3, 3 indicate that says that we want three such 2D arrays, like 3 uh, 3 by 3 double dimensional arrays, 3 two-dimensional array, 3 by 3 matrices. So that consists of 3 rows and 3 columns. So this is an example for 3 rows and multi-dimensional array or 3-dimensional array. So here I am writing block size, that is a two-dimensional size, and second block contain row size. So that is a two-dimensional array row size, and third index number size consists of column size of a 2D array. So now I'm going to read total 12 values. So that is 2 into 3 into 2, that is equal to 6 into 2. So total you have to read 12 number of values. So if you want read or if you want to use a three-dimensional array, then you have to use three for loops. So that is I equal to 0, j equal to 0, k equal to 0. Then you have to read by using a scanner function. You have to read a of I, j, k. And similarly, I'm going to display same thing. So what are the values I'm going to read from the keyboard, and same values I'm going to display on the screen. So this is an example here. So I'm going to read 12 values, 1 to up to 12 values. Then it will go and display like this. So the first element will be stored at index number 0, 0. So that means 0th row, 0th row, 0th row, 0th row, and 0th column. It will store 1. So like that, the array elements will be stored up to 12 elements. So the 12 the last element can be stored first row, uh, first row of two-dimensional array. So it will be stored second row size, that is a second row, and first column, that is equal to 12. So for a three-dimensional array, the array elements can be stored like this. And now coming into limitations. So what are the limitations of using arrays? So the limitations are, so the compiler use static memory allocation for an array. So that means that at the time of declaring of an array, you have to declare size of the array. So that means arrays are static memory allocation. So our array is a static data structures. So that means that once you can declare the size of the array, so that size of the array cannot be increased, or it cannot be decreased at the time of compilation or at the time of runtime also. So it is not possible to increase or to decrease the size of an array at the time of execution. So that is one of the limitation of an array. So second one, elements cannot be inserted into an array. So elements cannot be inserted into an array. So it is not possible. Uh, so that means that if you want more elements, for example, you are declared only array size will be 10, but you want required more elements. You want to declare more elements at the time, it is not possible. So it is not possible to read more than declaring array size. And similarly, uh, one more limitation is elements cannot be inserted into an array. So that means that if the array size will be very large, so then it is very difficult to perform insertion operation. For example, my array size will be 10,000 elements. Then I need to enter I need to insert one more element at last index number. Then I need to compare each and every elements from first index to up to last index number. So that means the insertion of elements, so it will be more difficult. So if it is a simple 5 elements, it is very easy to insert the elements, but it is a very large number of array, then the insertion operation or deletion operation, it can be difficult. So these are the limitations. And the next one is if the number of elements to be stored is not known in advance, there may be a memory wastage of an array of large size is specified. So that means that once you can declare the array size, at the time of compilation time, so that size you cannot increase or you cannot decrease. You cannot increase or you cannot decrease. But you don't, and similarly, you don't know how much amount of array elements you want required at the time of execution of the program. So that is a one thing. And similarly, if you declare very large size, but you are using only some elements, then it will be comes under wastage of the memory. So that is one of the limitations of the array. And similarly, if you declare array size will be very small, so that means not to be enough memory to place all the elements. So if you declare the array size will be very small, then uh, then uh, it is not place all the elements into the memory location. And similarly, if you declare the array size will be very large, among this for example, if your declared size will be 10 elements, sorry, 100 elements, then you are using only 10 elements for storing of out of 100 elements you are using only 10 elements at the time, and remaining values will be filled with a 0. That means memory wasted in the arrays. So that means it is not possible you can increase the size of the array, or it is not possible you can decrease the size of the array. So that means there is a memory wastage there in the arrays. So that is one of the limitations of the array. And next one is C does not perform bound checking of an array. So one more limitations of an arrays will be the bound checking. So the compiler does not checking the array index out of bounds error. So these are all will be comes under limitations of an array. And next one is the difference between character array and integer array. So what is the difference between a character array and an integer array? So in an integer array, so the list, the array elements at the end of array elements cannot be stored with null character. So we are not going to store null character if you have declared the array as a integer data types. So that means we can store only numbers, but at the end of the digits, it has not ended with a null character. So whereas in character array, so it contain only characters. For storing of characters, uh, you need to require one more space for storing the null value. So at the end of the characters, it will be store null character. So whereas in at end of integer array, it has not ended with the null characters. So this is an integer array, and this is a character array. For storing of characters into the array, you should use /0 at end of the array. So whereas integer array is not required. So that is about difference between character array and integer array. So that is about double dimensional arrays. In the next class, we'll go and discuss about uh, strings and the storage classes. So if you have any doubts up to about arrays concepts, you can ask me. I will try to clarify your doubts. So these are the topics I covered under arrays: definition, initialization, and characteristics, and categories, and followed by limitations, and difference between integer and character array. So these are topics I covered under arrays. And if you have any doubts, you can post the query in the chat box. So in the next day 14, we'll go and discuss about strings and storage classes. So that's all about today's session. And if you have any doubts, you can post your queries in the chat box. So if you are understanding today's session, so please like the video, and also you can type in chat box yes. So please like the video, and you can subscribe the channel, so that you can interact with me more. So can interact with me. So if you have any doubts, you can post it in the chat box. I will try to answer your queries. And if you like this today's session, please type yes in the chat box. And if you don't have any doubts, I will post the attendance link in WhatsApp group as well as under comment section. So thank you.